Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I'm your host of the Industry Edge podcast, where we talk to leaders working in the hardest working industries like manufacturing, distribution, construction, material handling, and more. Today's episode is brought to you by KNC Marketing. KNC is a full service marketing agency that helps B2B industrial companies grow their brands and increase sales. To learn more about KNC, visit kncmarketingagency.com. Today's guest is someone who brings nearly 2 decades of manufacturing experience to the table and a refreshingly honest, people-centered approach to leadership. Mark Carlton is the Director of Operations at Schaefer's Electrical Enclosures, where he's known for being a face-to-face kind of leader that relies on grit and candor. He leads with direct, thoughtful communication and a bias for action. Mark, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How'd you get started in manufacturing and operations?
Honestly, I kind of wonder how anyone ends up in manufacturing. I don't think very many kids like grow up and say, I'm going to work in manufacturing. It's kind of funny, actually, the only parenting advice I got, and I got very minimal parenting advice on my career choice, was don't work in a factory. You don't want to work in a factory. That was from my mom, who did factory shift work. But it was from a small town, so it's really kind of my scope out of high school. You know, it's like you can be like three things: a cop, a teacher, or a nurse. Like the options weren't very pervasive. Like there weren't a lot of them, and so I don't know how many people, and this may be for you too. How many people actually pick a career, go through the curriculum, land the job, and actually start their adulting career doing what they thought they said they were going to do. For me, I kind of just wandered my way here, and I'm really thankful I am because this is kind of how I found. Like for you, did you dream up when you were going through your early education? I'm going to be a co-founder of KNC Marketing.
No, I didn't. I thought my degree's in PR, but I didn't know really what marketing entailed, and my journey was the same. It kind of I thought I could do a couple. I knew I was good at writing and reading, and I was not very good at math, so that's where my path led, but you're right.
Yeah, so for me, I just found it along the way. Like most normal college kids, I needed recreational money, and so I took a job wrapping and banding skids in a factory just so I could have money to go out. And it's funny, you know, that was my first exposure to machinery. I had a wrapper. It was a Landtech wrapper. It was just an automatic wrap machine, nothing really fancy. But that was my entry level into manufacturing, and for whatever reason I wish I could understand why. I had great leaders that spent time teaching me, that then I kept learning, then I kept growing interests. And honestly, there bring this conversation full circle to not starting where you thought, but not ending where you thought you would, where you started. I started not a STEM type major and ended up switching career paths, worked my way up through a lot of the departments. So again, I started in shipping, and then through various manufacturing places, I was a project manager running installations of equipment, writing the documentation. One of my leaders then gave me maintenance as a way for me to get more stuff done. So like, hey, we're going to give you maintenance, you can get more done. So I was able to use maintenance to get stuff done. Took an interest in lean manufacturing. I had a great lean sensei from a consulting group that he was outstanding at teaching me lean practices, which then pushed me into lean manufacturing. And then after I came out of lean manufacturing, I got some opportunities for operationals management. And so here I am. So definitely didn't start my career path here, but I'm so glad that I got put in a situation and had really great leaders that were patient. Honestly, I look back at myself, I don't know why. I've asked the question, like, why? Why did you spend time teaching me? And honestly, it was just the type of leader they were. So that's for me, that's how I ended up in manufacturing by some crazy accident.
That's so cool. And you've been doing it for almost 2 decades. That's such a long time. So, fast forward now, you're leading a powerhouse team. What are the principles that you live by in leadership?
I have an outstanding team. My team is honestly what makes me. This is kind of funny. I don't know for the folks that listen to The Office. This question to me is like, if you're familiar, David Wallace, the CFO, interviews Michael Scott, the regional manager. Hey, why is your branch doing so good? And Michael just can't answer the question because he just rambles on because he really doesn't know what he did right. So this kind of question starts for me that way. But if I have to sum it all up, I really don't take myself too seriously. And I had read this book. It was called The $1 Trillion Coach, and he said something in there that I'll kind of reference. It says, "Your title makes you a manager, but your people make you a leader." And that book was written by some folks that were coached by this fellow named Bill Campbell, and they were three Google executives that just kind of replayed how instrumental as a leader he was in their career. And so honestly, a lot of my approach is focusing on the people, and it has to be because at the end of the day, if you really think about manufacturing and you think about what it really is, or any business really, without the people, it's just an empty building. It's just equipment. It's just inventory. And there's nothing special about any of those. Any private venture firm or any company can go out and decide to buy a building. They can go out and decide to buy the same equipment. I can buy the same equipment anyone else can buy. I can buy the same hardware anyone else can buy. But really what differentiates organizations is the people. That's the special part. That's the part that can honestly make you surprise yourself. If you can get all the people rowing in the right direction, you can blow targets out of the water. And at the same time, if you can't get people rowing in the right direction, you spend a lot of energy working on things that aren't productive, really the dynamics of the team. And so for me, that's really one of my big philosophies is you've got to really focus on the people, which is funny for me because it's not natural. Like if you told me, hey, Mark, we want you to start a whole new facility. We bought property in Virginia and you need to build a building, buy the equipment, write the work instructions, staff it, recruit. You have to do everything. I would say, okay, I'll have it done. When do you want it done by? And what else do you want me to do? Because that would be very easy to me. If you told me, hey, we need you to coach 3 struggling managers, I would say that sounds way harder. Coaching is way harder than the doing. And so, it's kind of funny, but really focusing on the people, not a natural part of me. I can talk to people, but I have to really struggle. I have to really, again, the why I read the books, why I try to look and learn from other people is because the people are the hard part, but the people are actually where the gold is. I had a production manager tell me once he would find the gold in everyone. And if you really kind of think about that, everyone has gold in them. Now, whether they can see it, whether it's on top, whether it's buried underneath years of other drama that has nothing to do with their career, uh, everyone has gold in them. And so, a philosophy that I kind of remember all the time, I say this to people all the time, is people don't generally, people don't come to work and say, I want to suck at my job today. I really want to do a terrible job. I really want to fight with my coworkers and not be productive. I think as leaders, if you start with that as your fundamental kind of starting point, okay, people didn't show up today in the parking lot and want to have a bad day. They did not. What's the trick? What's the magic? How do you make it easy for them to be successful? How do you make it easy for them to do the right thing? How do you make it easy for them to discuss matters with you? How do you make it easy for them to be productive? That's kind of I don't know, I would say hard to self-evaluate, but something I say all the time is people don't naturally want to do a bad job.
That's true. How have you figured out along your journey and adding more and more people to your team over the years? How have you learned to give people feedback? We are human and we all have very human days. How do you keep that ship moving in the right direction and giving feedback to your team in constructive ways?
Well, it's you got to for me, I have to remember, and first off, I don't feel like I have the answers. I just have my perspective. And one thing that I've kind of come to terms with is you're not going to keep everyone. And I think it's a little bit unreasonable to think you're going to keep everyone. Not everyone's going to start an organization and die there. I mean, I think as leaders, it's our job to get our people to the next step.
Mhm.
And for me, I kind of learned that lesson. I had a great engineer. I loved him to death. We took him from Ford. He came and worked for us for several years, and he ended up applying for another job. We left on great terms. Super dude. We still talk. But what he said to me on his way out was, "Hey, thank you. I wouldn't have got that job if it weren't for my time with you." And at the time, I don't think he realized what he said, and there's no way he realized what I heard, which was, okay, sometimes it is about preparing people for the next level. It's preparing people for your stepping stone for some people. And so if you kind of come to terms with that, um, well, then it kind of frames up how you can deliver feedback. And really, I do like to be direct and honest, because you're not doing people favors. Sometimes we think we are. We're not doing anyone favors not telling them the truth. When they're underperforming and everyone knows it, people can see it. People aren't blind, uh, and then people are talking about it or whatever it is. People observe it. It is a reflection of their reputation. So you feel like you're doing them a favor not giving them this feedback. I kind of start there. Okay, and I honestly most of the time lead with that. Like, listen, it's my responsibility to tell you this. I don't love telling you this, um, but you can't do that till you have legitimate trust. You've got to have an understanding of who they are. You have to have that relationship so that you can give the feedback that way. But for me, hey, I've got to do this as a responsibility to make you what? And that's something we say a lot of times. Hey, we emphasize the word better. So, hey, why am I doing this? And they'll finish it for you to make me better. It's like, that's right. So I'm not doing this to tear you down. And so if you can get on an understanding that feedback, it's not mean, it's a perspective, and it can be a discussion. But the perspective is, and you're giving the feedback, you're sharing the specific information, but it's got to be in the nature of making them better. If you're doing it to just be mean, that's where it's not constructive anymore. One Patrick Lencioni, he's done written several books. One of the things I heard him say once was a big J versus a little J, and a big J is just being a jerk to be a jerk. You have an opinion, you're going to be a jerk, you're going to share it because your opinion's the best, whatever, whatever. But a little J is being direct with purpose, and doing it in a way is it going to ruffle feathers? Probably should. If you give feedback to someone and they don't care, that's a whole different problem. But if you can give feedback and you do it in a way that you have that understanding, it's hey, why am I doing this? And they can say, oh, to make me better. Then it's pretty much game open for direct, honest feedback. You don't have to feel guilty anymore. I stopped feeling guilty giving feedback when it was actually warranted. And that's something that is very easy to feel bad about doing, especially early in your career. You don't want to be judgmental, you don't want to be critical, but at the same time, are you doing anyone favors? I don't know if you are.
I like that perspective of like trying to be a little J when you have to have those hard conversations.
Yeah. And we
Um,
even treat the interns this way. When we get the interns, we have a lot of industrial interns come through. Our process engineers do a great job coaching them, helping them make improvements in our facility, and even with attendance. Even though this is a part-time gig, even though this is, hey, they just got out of class and they have a test to take, we are very understanding of all of that. But you got to hold them. It's starting with something small. We hold them accountable to, hey, you need to be here at the time you said you're going to be here, even though this isn't your final job. Why? Because this is creating good habits. And I will have failed you if you go get your next job and they get fired for attendance, or their manager has to give them feedback for not being there on time. And so even small stuff like that, again, it's creating good habits, being direct, and that's kind of a summary of that.
I love that. Those are the things that our parents taught us to do as kids. And society has changed so much that even the simple things like being on time and, dressing the part is still a big part of, you know, things that need to be instilled in generations. So that's great.
I had a CEO tell me once, he said, do the easy things. And his examples were make the bed. And
Hmm.
like if you can't be disciplined enough as a leader to get up and do the easy things, then are you really going to be willing to do the hard things, or are you going to be making excuses for the little things because you're doing other things? And I don't know, that's always stuck with me.
I love that. So you mentioned instilling good habits and giving good feedback and being a stepping stone for, and being okay with being a stepping stone for your team members. While you have them, what are the things that you do to keep your team engaged in such a high demand, fast moving environment?
Well, and let me be clear, the goal is to keep them all. You definitely want to retain the great talent, but it's a good question. How do you keep them engaged in that environment? It's really a few things that I think are really important. They have to love what they do. They have to enjoy who they do it with. They have to like who they do it for, and they have to own what they do. And if you can if you can make all of those things true, it at some point it doesn't work anymore. It's not now. I've had someone tell me this true too, and it is a really good perspective. You're not coming to work to go to the circus. You're not going to the fair. You're not going to an amusement park. Like that. That is a philosophy. Work is work, and I agree that work is work. But when you've got a lot of smart people and you're trying to leverage their strengths, not their weaknesses. So that's the other thing you've got to do. You can wish. I like to play the hand I have, not the hand I wish I had,
Mhm.
because I can dream up the best team all I want. Oh, I wish I had a guy like this and a guy like this. But at the end of the day, you have what you have, and they all have something to provide. And if you can make them, and when I say own what they do, they have to believe in it. They
Mhm.
have to believe in the purpose. They have to believe that what they're doing is um, not certainly not immoral, but in line with their values or an objective that's larger than them. They have to like who they do it for, so that they're not working for a guy or a girl that they just don't believe that they even want to make them successful. Their team is what's going to enable them if they can work in a team. It'll enable higher productivity and it'll enable more engagement if they like who they do it with. And then if they love what they do, yeah, it all of a sudden isn't work. I come to work every day and I don't feel like I come here. I feel like I'm going to go do something that I do, but I don't dread it. I don't sit in the parking lot. And I think if we can find ways to understand our people, that's the hard part, understanding the various types of people and what engages them. There's a model. It's called the Working Genius, and I've taken the assessment and I had my team take it. And there's generally six different types of people that they classify. You've got your wanderer. Your wanderer is kind of just wondering, can things be better? Hey, how can I make? Can this be better? Your inventors are the people that are creating new ideas that are solutions. Your discerners are evaluating the ideas and then deciding, hey, what is the right one? The galvanizers are rallying. They're saying, hey, let's get together. Let's do this. We can do it. Your enablers are helping, and your tenacity folks say, we're going to do this. And if you can have a well-rounded team, you can unlock each other's uh, basically time and spend time doing what you're good at. And the assessment goes on to tell you things that these are your strengths, right? Here's your midpoints and here's your weaknesses. But the point is you can't have a team full of wanderers,
Mhm.
or you just wonder about a whole lot of things and you do nothing. And you can't have a team full of doers that don't think about what's the right thing to do. You've got to work on the right problems. I think half the problem is we work on the wrong things because we feel like they're right.
Mhm.
And so figuring out the tool you use to kind of understand your team and mix that with kind of what I said before about what makes people engaged, I think keeping them in a high stress, high demand environment, those are definitely a philosophy that I try to do to the best of my ability. And I feel like if you polled them, I feel like they'd say, we like what we do and who we work with. And the people that have moved on to better careers, I certainly hope that they have found who they're meshed with as well.
So do you try to pick out those types of qualities in people as you're going through the interview process and looking for new people to join your team? Are those the types of things that you're trying to figure out about them, or what do you look for in your new hires?
It's funny if I really simplified it, and then I can kind of drill into it some more. If I really simplified it, I love when I'm particularly for like the engineering team. I love people who are hard workers that just happen to be smart. Like several guys on the team are like came from a farm, but then they went on to an engineering degree. Like those are like unicorns. These are people that love to work. That in manufacturing, this isn't a desk job. This 9 times out of 10, if you're an engineer in manufacturing, if you're a designer, maybe you're spending a time at a computer. But if you're in a manufacturing environment, industrial engineer, mechanic, you're probably got a little dirt on you, or you're out on the floor engaging with the people occasionally, and that's the sweet spot. Now you can't just interview applicants on did you work on a farm or did you go to school, but you kind of want to complement the team. And so when I interview folks, I'm really looking for a compliment to the team, but at the same time just enough disruptive that they shake up everyone else in a way that's constructive. um, because a lot of times, and this is my perspective, when you have problems in manufacturing, they're just as much about solving the team dynamics as they are about solving the problem. Like honestly, manufacturing problems, this isn't brain surgery. People aren't going to die at your fingertips because you nicked some blood vein or something, right? I mean, most manufacturing problems can get down to pretty, what I call, I'm oversimplifying it on purpose, but they're not as complicated as the people problems. And so if you can figure out uh, hiring a team and then solving the team dynamics, when you do that, that's kind of, I think, an important deal when bringing on a team.
So it sounds like you are fast moving, trying to hire the right people. You're not afraid of trying things and possibly things, either they're going to go the right way or the wrong way. You're not afraid of that. But you have told me that your actual fear can be summed up in the folktale, The Emperor's New Clothes. So for those that aren't familiar with that story, what does that mean?
That's a funny folk tale. That was shared to me many many years ago by a CFO, and I don't. He shares a lot of stuff, and I don't know if he knows I remember it, but that one hit. And the folk tale, and I'll try to keep it pretty condensed, is that there was an emperor who just loved his clothes. He didn't care about his army. He didn't care about going to the theater. He didn't care about riding his carriage around. He loved to show off his clothes. And some thieves come to town, and these visitors are swindlers that basically sell the emperor on the idea that they have wonderful clothes that they can make out of beautiful fabrics. But there's a caveat, there's a little trick. People who aren't worthy or stupid or unfit can't see the garments. And so he believes, my gosh, I need to have those garments. These are wonderful. So he, in advance, pays them a bunch of money, gives them the materials to make these robes and clothes for him, and he sends them down to go make these wonderful garments for him. So I'll try to wrap up the story, but what happens over time is he starts to wonder, oh, I need to go check. How are my garments coming along? But he's a little afraid to go himself because if you can't see him, then he's unfit for his own job. So right, so he sends his most trusted advisor. It's like a minister of some type. Sends him down, goes to the basement or wherever, and here these swindlers are. They're working these looms and they're weaving fabrics, but all the meantime, it's empty. The looms are empty. There's no thread in their needles. They're basically just going through the motions. But the minister at first is like, hey, what's going on here? But then very quickly doesn't want to be foolish. So
Hmm.
they start saying to him, well, look at this. Well, don't you see these beautiful fabrics? And in that moment, he falls for it. Hey, oh my gosh, these are wonderful. So he goes back and he tells this emperor, hey, they're beautiful fabrics. You're going to love them. So more time goes on. The same situation happens again. The emperor sends a second person down there. Story goes on again. He comes back, reports that they're beautiful. So after two people have reported that things were beautiful, the emperor decides, hey, I can go down there. They pass the test. They can see the garments. Um, I'll go down. I must see them at once. When he gets down there, seeing the empty looms, but afraid to admit that he can't, that these swindlers are holding up the garments. But meanwhile, their hands are empty. Oh, do you see them? They're beautiful. So they strip them down naked. They put these garments on one at a time, pretending to put pants on this guy, pretending to robe him, pretending to give him these beautiful fabrics and parade him through the streets so that he can show off his wonderful fabrics. So obviously the story ends he's naked in the streets and he doesn't figure it out till some innocent boy goes, "Look, Dad, that emperor is naked." And once everyone realizes that the pure kid can see that he's naked, they all realize everyone can see the gig is up.
Mhm.
But the emperor is so proud and he's so, at this point, pot committed, he walks the streets naked. So that's a really long story to tell you what my biggest fear is. But I think the moral of that story is, you definitely need your team to be honest with you. You need to develop an environment where people don't let you walk naked through the streets. And for me, it's weird. I encourage arguments with me. Like I really want my people to fight with me about. They can't let me, without a fight, make bad decisions because I will make wrong decisions. I'm not perfect, and if people are going to let me make those decisions because they're afraid to tell me, that would be my biggest fear. I mean, I have people come close my door and they wanted to, hey, I won't tell them, but I have a question. I have a concern. Hey, you said this. What did you mean? You've got to have a team that's open enough with you to share when you're naked. And you definitely in manufacturing need to know what's going on your in your shop floor or whatever you're managing. You can't have enough layers that you can't see. So that's for me, that sums up my fear
Love it.
is I need people to fight with me so I don't make bad decisions.
So after, when those bad decisions or those hard conversations happen, how do you learn from that and how do you ensure that those failures are a teacher of some sort, or what do you do to ensure that you're failing forward?
That's funny. It's a common cliche or adage, right? Failure is a good teacher. My experience, I think it's a good teacher. Failure is a good teacher when it's in a safe environment, right? You can't get ricked over the coals for your mistakes, or what you focus on is getting rigged over the coals. What you really want to focus on is why did I fail? I try to spend, if I make a bad decision or I'm upset about how I behaved, which surprisingly happens, I misbehave. I'll spend 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, wallowing around in what I did wrong. But very quickly, I have to decide, cool, I'm getting past that. So now what am I going to do going forward? And a lot of lessons that I think stick with people are ones that are emotional. They cause physical pain, anger, exhaustion. And that's why I think failure is a good teacher. I remember very early in my career, we had bought a nice robotic weld cell. It had the best camera technology on it, the best welders on it, and we were welding product. And I still remember this story because it's a good teacher. And I did a keystroke combination and I crashed this probably $90,000 worth of equipment into a steel table and and ended up only breaking about $6,000 or $8,000 worth of stuff. Right. But that's right only. Um, but that's kind of a silly way to illustrate why failure is a good teacher because I still remember that. I can't remember groceries I'm supposed to get for my wife sometimes. I can't remember what soccer field I'm supposed to be on that I was just told 10 minutes ago. But failure is a good teacher when you can tie it to emotional events and actually learn from it. And so I remember the keystroke combinations, and I don't have to do it anymore. But I can now warn my colleagues, I'm like, hey, you want to watch out. You definitely don't want to do that.
Been there, done that.
But I
Um,
can remember the craziest things. Again, it's good teachers. Some of my team will still come to me on stuff I dealt with 10 years ago. Like, hey, do you remember how this works? And the likelihood that I will remember that because it was emotional and because it was exhausting and because it was a big part of who I was at the time, whatever it was, I can remember it. It's crazy. Isn't that funny?
it is crazy. You don't, and what's sad is you don't often, or I don't often stop to like celebrate the things that are going really well, or if we achieve a goal. But then if one thing goes wrong, it just, sits on my brain for days and days. And so that's what's been hard for me is when I fail, like that tends to shine a brighter light than accomplishments, which is not a good thing. But I feel like that's just how we how we operate as humans, as those things tend to stand out in our minds. But we learn from them and we remember when we did fail and try not to do it the next time.
That's right. And you mentioned, how do you know if you failed forward? How do you make sure you're failing forward? I mean, honestly, getting back up. That's like the big indicator that you failed forward. If you don't get back up and you go backwards, or you become hesitant or scared, maybe some of it's healthy. Like there's an amount of hesitation and fear that's healthy. But if it's so strong that you don't get back up and keep going forward, that's how you know you didn't fail forward.
That's great. So, in your role, your various roles over the years in operations, can you talk about some of the challenges that you've faced and how you've overcome them? Like, what are the big challenges that stick out to you, having started at the bottom and worked your way up?
I'd love to have a story that solves all the world's problems on solving people. I don't I don't have the solution on that, but one thing that's over time really changed for manufacturing is the technology.
Hmm.
If you go, it's perpetuating faster and faster. If you look at, I mean, 20 years ago, our equipment was way different than it was today. Our maintenance guys were shade tree mechanics. They could work on stuff, and if you could have electrical prints and a fluke meter, you could solve a lot of problems. As technology has advanced, I mean, you've got to have someone log in from Italy into your sophisticated machine to tell you what the problem is sometimes. And in fact, even my wife drives a Volkswagen. I mean, it's kind of funny. Manufacturing kind of follows certain things, and the guy told me, he said, "Oh, we have to connect that to a master technician in Germany. We can't tell you the problem until he connects to it or he does his deal." And so manufacturing really has come a long way when it comes to technology. And a big operational challenge has been evolving past, well, how do you deal with that? How do you work on stuff that isn't visible? It's not as easy to fix anymore because the technology has become so ingrained. It takes a high level person. And honestly, it's taken about 10 years to get where we are in our facilities maintenance. But really, it's got to start in a good CMMS software system or a computerized maintenance management system, some way to manage what's going on in your facility. We started life early, like most people did, which was paper work orders and trying to track stuff in an Excel spreadsheet. And fast forward to where we are now, QR codes on equipment where people can scan it with their cell phones. And if it's the right type of maintenance work order, it blasts text to all the technicians and engineers that immediately need to go work on that, to cell phones that describe the issue. I mean, keeping a plant running in manufacturing is very tedious. There's not a lot of respect that it's really behind the scenes work that goes for the folks that keep making a facility running. So how we solve that is getting a good system that manages our maintenance and manages our preventative maintenance, making that shift from breakdown maintenance, hey, work on it when things break, to proactive maintenance, working on it when I want to work on it and at an ideal time to prevent it from breaking. And then working with our partners. We have great partners in our supply chain on our machines, where we've done an inventory analysis, we've done some breakdown analysis, and we've decided, hey, these are the parts we need that are long lead times. These are the parts that we need that are from Italy or Switzerland. These are the parts that we need because they're cheap and they're easy to replace. And so we've spent a lot of work going through what all those little various and sundry things that can be your Achilles heel in manufacturing, and figuring out, well, how do you just keep things running? Keeping things running can be a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. So what's on the your horizon? Like what trends or shifts are you paying attention to that you think other companies should be paying attention to?
Well, I think it won't surprise you, the answer may be AI. And I think it's kind of funny because if you go back, if you could be at the groundwork of the calculator, like when the calculator was invented, whenever that was, or there were old mechanical calculators, and then there was the advent of actual electronic calculators that did the math for you. I would suspect that people were afraid of calculators. Like, oh my gosh, well, people aren't going to be able to do math if the calculator does it for them.
Mhm.
I kind of think that's maybe the case with AI. I think what's probably happening, and there's a fear of it, there's a lot of legitimate concern with AI, there's a lot of benefits. So leveraging that in a safe way that isn't fearful, like the calculator, because turns out you still can't pass calculus with a calculator if you don't know what you're doing, because it's hard. And so it doesn't, the calculator wasn't a substitution for job knowledge, it enabled quicker decisions and knowledge. And I think that's probably the case with AI. It's a big buzzword, but I think there's the opportunity used appropriately to enable higher productivity and better decision making. But it's got this, uncanny valley, if you will, on, okay, is this too creepy? Or is this really going to enable me to be a more productive facility?
I feel like it's kind of surprising society in the ways that we can use it. And, I think from automation and robotics, it's like people are like, it's going to replace jobs and it's going to do this and that, and everyone's scared of it. Let's no, 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 or whatever. But I feel like when as companies have embraced these things in manufacturing and operations, and it's been empowering and productive and efficient. And I mean, that's going to be the case with AI. But right now we are in a really scary place with it, and society doesn't really know where it's going to go. But I like the idea of embracing it and seeing how it can impact things day by day. So
Well,
that's
it's probably not going away unless the Matrix is true and we're all in this reality. Uh,
yep.
and the calculator really didn't enable, and the fear of it really isn't legit. Now, this one's got some stuff to it. Like, don't get me wrong. Is there some fear behind it? Absolutely. But I think, and this is just kind of a suspicion, but I think it's possible and the use of AI will be a skill. So it takes a skill to use, what do you dictate? How do you say? How do you use it? When it's appropriate? When is it not appropriate? Is the output good? Is the output bad? I don't know. But just like using a calculator takes skill and you have to have knowledge, I think probably AI will become a skill that you have to learn, or you're not going to be as efficient with it like a calculator.
I totally agree with that. Okay, so we're gonna land the plane a little bit. Tell me a little bit about if you can go back in your career and give yourself one piece of career advice, what would it be?
This is funny. I think it's funny, but maybe it's not. Managing my emotions. It's really hard to be passionate, and this is I've actually told bosses this. Like, if you want me to be less passionate, I can, but that's going to come with a whole nother bag of tricks. I'm a very passionate person, and what I do it probably too intense. And so learning how to manage emotions, I'd read this book, it's called Deliberate Calm. And the whole idea of it, and they've laid out some tiers of being able to basically self-evaluate in a situation. When you're in a situation, when you're giving that feedback, or when you're met with confrontation, when you're met with a situation, uh, noticing in yourself what's about to happen
Mhm.
and being smart enough and disciplined enough to course correct before it comes out of your mouth, before your body language changes, and the whole book, it's a really an interesting book. It uses the viewpoint of, if in that exact moment you were in a skylight and you could look down at yourself from the outside in, what would you do different? And what do you see? And so for me, managing myself, I mean, this way, I don't know how my boss managed me. I can barely manage myself sometimes. Looking at myself and managing emotions is probably something that it causes turbulence, and I think going back, I probably could have been more productive. I probably could have been more team oriented and got more done working with people better, just by taming that a little bit.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Bleh.
A hard one. What advice would you give to someone stepping into an operations leadership role for the first time?
Take the time to understand. A general philosophy of mine is you can't change something till you truly understand it. Now you can break it. Uh, Now I had a programmer work for me for several years, and he was really talented, But he had a habit that he wouldn't develop his code in a sandbox, meaning he would do it live. He would do it on the system live, and if it messed up, he would just fix it. Now, he was incredibly talented. He could fix it. And the point of that is because he understood what was going on, he understood how his system worked, he understood what A and B equals C, whatever, whatever, he could be a little bit more aggressive than your normal guy would be. And he could break it, find his limit, and fix it. And I think if you're going into manufacturing, uh, understanding, taking the time to understand, if you have a true understanding of what's going on in your facility, it enables some decision making that, blending some intuition, blending some experience together, you could blend all that together and probably make better changes than not understanding yet what's going on. That's tough. It's tough to understand what's going on depending on the level of the organization that you come in on. Uh, Hence, go back to my biggest fear is the emperor's new robes or clothes. Is you've got to have a good pipe of information, trusted information, to help you understand what's going on, so that you can form an informed opinion and make informed decisions. So I think taking time to understand, which opens up a whole nother bag of worms. But in short, taking time to understand. I think that would be it.
So smart. And it sounds like with the Emperor's New Clothes, not being afraid to say something and instead of just going along with status quo or what's the norm has been, sounds like an important quality along those lines.
Well, you have to be. It's hard. You have to be willing to be wrong. And so guess what? I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot.
Wow.
But as a team, I probably win a lot because a lot of right people behind me didn't let me be wrong. But you gotta be able to set your ego aside and really say, okay, that was probably a better idea. I like that. And I'm not always good at that, surprisingly, but again, do my best.
There's a lot of vulnerability that you have to be able show in those situations. So it definitely sounds like you are a reader, I can tell. So outside of work, other than, well, it sounds like reading, like I said, but what keeps you grounded? What keeps you inspired? Books, hobbies, habits, what makes you be a better leader and better in general?
I learned this late in life, so maybe this is also a sidestep question to your previous one earlier. What would I tell my younger self? So a sidestep to that is the answer to this. If you really want to bring your best at work, so you want to come to work and give it all, you've got to take care of yourself outside of work. If you and I lived the better part of my 20s and early 30s thinking I don't need sleep, I can stay up, I can still go out, I can do everything, and I'm going to be okay because I have lots of energy. Probably true, but if I look back, if taking care of yourself, and this honestly is as I get older, some of it becomes a necessity. I can't not sleep as much, but if you really want to bring it all to work at your best, you have to take care of yourself the best. That includes, I mean, I got a wonderful family, wonderful kids. My support systems are solid. I mean, I try to eat good. I try to get an appropriate amount of sleep while still being ambitious. The balance it takes to take care of yourself so that when I come to work, I'm ready. I'm not wore out from other stuff. I've taken care of myself and I can bring it all and put it down on the table and be ready to go. Um, General things I like guitar. I like to play guitar because honestly, it tickles a different part of my brain. I come to work all day and I deal with certain issues. And then I go home and I deal with certain issues. But it's really nice sometimes I'm going to learn a new song tonight. I'm not Ed Sheeran, but does it tickle a different part of my brain? Yeah, yes, it does. And so, really, I mean, I got an old Land Cruiser that I'm renovating in my garage. It's going slow, but it's something different. So, really balancing taking care of myself in a healthy way, not a lazy way. I'm not saying go home and be lazy. I probably work just as hard at home as I do here because it's part of my personality. But whatever your personality is, take care of it so that when you come to work, you're engaged. You're not drinking coffee when you come in the door to wake up. You're well rested. You're ready to engage in conversation. You're ready to engage with your team. You're able to improve whatever it is you're working on. And you can't do that, in my opinion. You cannot do that if you're not taking care of yourself outside of work.
I 100% agree with that. And it's so hard to be, that committed to self-care to make your work better and your life better. That is fantastic advice. So to wrap it up, we've been talking with Mark Carlton, Director of Operations at Schaefer's Electrical Enclosures. Mark, tell people where they can find you.
So we're our website, electrical-enclosures.com. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Mark Carlton. I'd love to hear from you guys there, and had a wonderful time on the show, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.